2, 1.
Welcome. It's the Daily Objective. Jonathan Hoenig with you, our listeners, our viewers, our supporters all around the world, from Bath to Brimington to Berkshire to the Berkshires. We're happy to have you with us for an interesting topic today and every day. You know, we work to bring you interesting, objectivist-inspired content. We're all students of objectivism here, nearly 7 days a week. Even God took a rest, so we take a rest 1 day a week, but every other day we're here interpreting the news, bringing you interesting scholars and discussions and studies. I think today is no different. We're here to talk about today something, of course, always preference to you in the super chat, but we're going to talk today about something that's been, as they say, straight from the headlines, ripped from the headlines. It is about this man. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, forgive me. That is the wrong. We're supposed to get a different stock image. Forgive me. I've got to talk to Razi and our technician back there. Let me see if I can fix that. No, that is not Pope Francis. That's the Pillsbury Doughboy. This is Pope Francis. Pope Francis, the 266th Pope of the Catholic Church. And thank you, Roland. Sorry, thank you, Roland, already for your generous super chat, your generous contribution. Here's to the host who starts promptly. Well, we don't want to waste your time here. We don't want to waste your time. So we're going to talk about Pope Francis today. Pope Francis has been in the news. He is, well, he's got something on his mind. He gets something we want to talk about. You know, for Pope Francis, it's all about the kids. He's all about the children. And I know what you're saying. Obviously for him, when it's all about the children, it's all about, you know, all the child abuse allegations that have been floating around. Even now, this is from last month. The Spanish church is reeling in the wake of, apparently Pope Francis was handed the findings directly. No, he doesn't talk about that. He wants to talk about the children that, you know, you're not having, that I'm not having. Why? Because we're spending all this time, money, resources on our dogs, on our pets. That's the child-related issue that Pope Francis wants to talk about. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So this is, as we said, ripped from the headlines. It's kind of made the rounds just the last couple of weeks. Opting for pets over children is selfish and, quote, takes away our humanity, says Pope Francis. That's from CNN. New York Times, Pope scolds couples who choose pets over kids. Fox News, Pope criticizes couples who adopt pets instead of children, quote, a form of selfishness. So lots to unpack here when it comes to the Pope and his proclamations. And I'm going to actually, with deference to, is it His Honor, His Highness, whatever, with deference to the Pope, we're going to take a look at what he said, and I'm going to quote it with your permission so that we're all on the same page here. Quote, today we see a form of selfishness. We see that people do not want to have children, or just one and no more. And many couples do not have children because they do not want to, or they have just one, but they have 2 dogs, 2 cats. Yes, dogs and cats take the place of children. Yes, it's funny, I understand, but it is the reality. And this denial of fatherhood or motherhood diminishes us. It takes away our humanity. And in this way, civilization becomes aged and without humanity because it loses the richness of fatherhood and motherhood. And our homeland suffers as it does not have children. It is a risk, yes. Having children is always a risk, either naturally or by adoption, but it is riskier not to have them. It is riskier to deny fatherhood or to deny motherhood, be it real or spiritual. But denial, a man or a woman who does not develop the sense of fatherhood or motherhood, they are lacking something fundamental, something important. So a pretty big proclamation from the Pope there. And, you know, people who've been following the Pope, and I can't say I follow him too closely, but I certainly follow the news. You might have thought, well, gee, where have I heard this before? And honestly, whoever's writing the Pope's material now, they're kind of bringing out some greatest hits, because the Pope actually said exactly the same thing back in 2014. I thought, where have I heard that before? Oh yeah, from the Pope. This is from 2014. Headline in the Guardian here: Pope tells married couples have children, not pets. Pontiff says couples who decide not to procreate and opt to get a dog or cat face the bitterness of loneliness in old age. So this spiel, if you will, not Latin, is not new for the Pope. And I'm going to quote again from what he said 7 years ago. This culture of well-being from 10 years ago convinced us it is better not to have children. It's better. You can go explore the world, go on a holiday. You can have a villa in a countryside. You can be carefree. It might be better, more comfortable to have a dog, 2 cats, and the love goes to the 2 cats and the dog. Is this true or is it not? Have you seen it? Then in the end, this marriage comes to old age and solitude with the bitterness of loneliness. It is not fruitful. It does not do what Jesus does with his church. He makes his church fruitful. So this is what Pope Francis said. Some similar ideas now, 7 years ago. So as students of objectivism, I thought, as we say, let's unpack that. And with our, and first of all, I want to thank our super chatters. Robert saying, looking good, nice background. And pastry is bigger than the Pope. Well, yes, I would opt for the Pillsbury Doughboy over the Pope in any format, but the Pope is arguably, you would say, even more impactful than the Doughboy. So we have to unpack his perspectives. And thank you, Allison. Allison says, doggo was cute. I worship your dog and is now Doge. All right, well, good. You can, it's okay to like a dog. Well, we'll talk about relationships with pets because there's lots to talk about today. Thank you, Allison, for that contribution. Thanks for being here. Let's unpack what the pontiff said. We're going to go through it, not excruciatingly, but line by line. Today, we see a form of selfishness. And for me, at least, as a student of objectivism, like that's a buzzword because, as we know, Rand wrote a book, The Virtue of Selfishness. And for Rand, again, quoting now, every man is an end to himself, not a means to the end of others. He must live for his own sake, neither sacrificing himself to others nor sacrificing others to himself. He must work for his own rational self-interest, with the achievement of his own happiness, the highest moral purpose in his life. And, in effect, what the pontiff is doing here is he's mocking that. We see that people don't want to have children. Many couples, they just want to have 1 or 2. They have dogs or cats. That takes the place of children. Yes, and I think this is my interpretation here, but I believe objectivism says, I wouldn't say Miss Rand would say, I believe the idea is, yeah, you are not here to be a oven to put forth children for society. You're here to live for your own sake, for your own rational self-interest. And that just might include children, might include pets and not children. Pontiff is so amazed, 2 dogs, 2 cats. Yes, dogs. Yes, absolutely. You're here not to sacrifice. You're here to pursue your own rational self-interest. That just might include something else besides children. Again, quoting from the pontiff, this denial of fatherhood or motherhood diminishes us. It takes away, my emphasis here, our humanity. In this way, civilization becomes aged and without humanity because it loses the richness of fatherhood and, quote, our homeland suffers. Again, as a student of objectivism, that's like pinging my ear, and what is the theme that, well, I'll ask the super chat here. When you hear this idea of, our humanity, our homeland, what's going through our mind here? And if you need a visual clue, I encourage the super chats because you're literally keeping the lights running here, but I'll give you a visual clue. Does that help you out here at all? No? Well, that might be too old. Let's try a little more Gen Z or X or whatever. Come on now, someone? It's duty, right? That is what's behind everything what the pontiff is talking about here, duty. And I'm going to quote a bit from Miss Rand here. Thank you, Mary-Aline. Mary-Aline says, if your pet dies, get another pet. Pontiff in your red pimp shoes. Thank you, Mary-Aline. Miss Rand wrote a lot about duty. And that's what I thought of when I read what the pontiff was saying here. What I interpret him as saying is like, you have a duty to have children. Don't be selfish with your pets. Don't be selfish with your career. You're here to you have a duty, and that's a real, I mean, it's a keyword, if you'd say, I think in objectivist literature. And I'm going to quote from Miss Rand a little bit here because I think it's important. She says, the meaning of the term duty is the moral necessity to perform certain actions for no reason other than obedience to some higher authority, aka Pope Francis, without regard to any personal goal, motive, desire, or interest. It's your duty. You don't want to have kids? You'd rather have pets. You'd rather, what does he say? Oh, have a villa? And he's mocking it. Oh, you just want to have a villa. You just want to have children. You don't have, yeah, that's what he's saying is it's your duty. He's the higher authority. So put aside your personal goal, motive, desire, or interest. That's what duty is. And again, quoting from Ram, good question about something financial related. We're going to get to that. Thank you for that contribution. I'm on a roll here on duty. So I'm going to thank you for your contribution. We're going to talk a bit about that after the presentation, if you don't mind, but thank you so much for that. Because it's, Rand abhors duty, I believe, and duty is all what the pontiff is about. And as, again, Ms. Rand says here, duty destroys reason. It supersedes one's knowledge and judgment, making the process of thinking and judgment irrelevant to one's action. Can I afford children? Do I want them? Do I want a whole life of taking it? Do I want, it doesn't matter for the Pope. You're fooling around with your pets, your animals, you're being selfish. There's the moral commendation. And as Ms. Rand says here, duty destroys values. It demands that one betray or sacrifice one's highest values for an inexplicable command, right? The command from who? I mean, respectfully, a man who we switched up his picture with the Pillsbury Doughboy. I'm just saying, it's just, he's got an outfit on, but what else does he have? Duty destroys love. I mean, think about that idea of, would you ever want your parent to say, yeah, we were really happy with our animals, but we felt like we had a duty to procreate. So we stooped and here you are. So, I mean, who would want that for their parent? Duty destroys self-esteem, as Rand says. At least, right, I mean, how can you feel good about what you're doing, the choices you're making, if you're doing it out of duty to the Pope or anyone else? And as I've cut her comments here a little bit back and forth, but she says, this is the kind of duty that gives morality a bad name. And I think that's just so right on the money for her. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Allison. Allison says, it's your duty to have children for the church to continue to assert their control on. They shun people who can't have kids. Yeah, well, I mean, that's a good observation, Allison. And my interpretation here, and we'll get into it a bit more of the Pope's POV here, is that, yeah, I mean, you're here in effect, to just breed more believers. Why? Duty. Again, we'll unpack a little bit here of his words. Quoting from the Pope now, a man or woman who does not develop the sense of fatherhood or motherhood, they are lacking something fundamental, something important. And again, kind of the little antenna in my head goes up and says, well, important to who? And for what? Rand talks about values not existing intrinsically or in the abstract. They are in relation to someone who's doing the valuing. So what is the value of a child to someone who does not want a child? And I don't want to start quoting these stories. It's like every day I see in my Flipboard of, people who should not have children. They have them anyway, and they do terrible, horrific things to them. So this idea that the pontiff seems to put forward that motherhood or fatherhood is an intrinsic value in a human being is, well, I'm paraphrasing this, Rand. I think it's a barnyard mentality, and we'll talk a bit about that later. But the idea is it a value? Well, it's a value to someone, and only that someone knows that. All right, let's continue on. The pontiff says, it is not fruitful. That is, if you're not having children, it is not fruitful. He's scolding you now. It does not do what Jesus does with his church. He makes his church fruitful. And, for this, I'll quote, and made me think of something, I think probably one of Rand's best and least read, least listened to, her article and speech of Living Death. It was a Ford Hall forum. It's also reprinted in The Voice of Reason. And basically it's her response to the pontiff at the time's encyclicals on abortion and sex, I believe. So there's a real interesting kind of, in my mind at least, comparison here of what Rand wrote in response to abortion and sex in the 60s and or 70s, and what Pope Francis is saying today. So Pope Francis is saying, look, you should make your church fruitful. Having children doesn't do that. You're supposed to, Jesus would make his church fruitful. You having pets does not. In quoting Miss Rand now, the passive obedience, a helpless surrender to the physical functions of one body, the necessity to let procreation be the inevitable result of the sexual act is the natural fate of animals, not men. And that's just it. For in my estimation here, the Pope sees us as animals. Hey, you're here, procreate. That's your natural thing. Your choice, your values, it's like, this is me, Pope would say, yeah, choice and values. You're here, God wants you to procreate, Jesus wants you to procreate, and he's belittling the other choices that people, thanks to capitalism and the modern world, can make. Oh, I don't know, maybe like a villa or pets or anything else. He's belittling it. He's belittling it. Let's use another example here. Here's the Pope, quoting now the Pope. I never thought I'd be quoting the Pope so much, but here we are. Quoting the Pope, it might be better, more comfortable to have a dog, 2 cats, and the love goes to the 2 cats and the dog. Is this true or is this not? Have you seen it? Then in the end, this marriage comes to old age and solitude with the bitterness of loneliness. And it made me think again of this stanza, which you might have known from Miss Rand's Of Living Death, where she talks about, I'm not going to read the whole thing. She says, try to hold an image of horror spread across space and time, across the entire globe through the centuries, the image of parents chained like beasts of burden to the physical needs of a growing brood of children. She kind of goes on to the idea that, raising children is a huge burden, and to be chained to that, without choice, without consciously making that a value. And the Pope is here saying, oh yeah, well, it might be easier. He's belittling the fact that what you should want is to be, this is my interpretation, chained like a beast of burden, quoting Miss Rand here, to the physical needs of children that you don't want. But Pope would say, oh, come on, Jesus would want you to be multiplying. I think it speaks for itself. Quoting now the Pope, today we see a form of selfishness. We see that people do not want to have children, or just one and no more. And many couples do not have children because they do not want to, or they have just one, or they have 2 dogs, 2 cats. Yes, dogs and cats take the place of children, the Pope said. Yes, it's funny, I understand, but it is the reality. And again, quoting from Miss Rand Of Living Death here, she says the capacity to procreate is merely a potential which man is not obligated to actualize. The choice to have children or not is morally optional. Nature endows man with a variety of potentials, and it is his mind that must decide which capacities he chooses to exercise according to his own hierarchy of rational goods and values. This is a great example of Miss Rand kind of answering, in my estimation, the same old altruism, self-sacrifice from the church. It doesn't change. It doesn't change decade to decade with the church. It's the same thing. So, as Ms. Rand says, to an animal, the rearing of its young is a matter of temporary cycles. To man, it is a lifelong responsibility, a grave responsibility that must not be undertaken causelessly, thoughtlessly, or accidentally. But for the Pope, as we said, don't be selfish. Don't pursue your villa. What does he mean by villa? It's material goods, right? Oh, you don't want to spend all that money on you just want your villa. Pope lives in a pretty nice villa, I believe. And so I'm here to say, don't listen to the Pope. And on this particular topic of pets, thank you, Mary Eileen. Does the Pope ever smile? I know who does smile.
In that.
Oh, wait. I know who does smile. That is my pet. This is a photo of me and one of my dogs from.
You want to introduce her?
Ooh, one of my dogs from way back. That's Bailey. Some of you have seen him before. So Be selfish, pursue your values. Now, those values might, in fact, be children. I mean, there's this perception that Rand didn't have kids, there was no children in her novel, so she didn't like kids. Not the case at all. There's lots in the objectivist literature and kind of movement about having children. There's a show on this particular channel with Lisa Van Dam called Enjoy Parenting. So we're talking a lot about children, raising children, parenting children. Dr. Brooke has talked about it. Craig Biddle has written about it. So there's a lot to talk and write about having children. Objectivism is not against children at all. I just think my estimation is it says take parenting seriously. Don't do it like the Pope does and just breed to have another believer who doesn't stop to question why he should be doing what he's doing. So, of course, this whole episode was a real excuse for me to share pictures of me and my wonderful dog, a great value in my life, miss him dearly. But also, keep in mind that it's not just me as an objectivist who loved and valued pets. Miss Rand, as you might know, was a ardent cat lover. Thank you, Allison. Bailey is adorable. Miss Rand, a lot of the facets of Ayn Rand, 100 Voices about Ayn Rand, talks about her and her wonderful relationship with her cats. That's another picture. That's another one that I especially love. And I'm always recommending Dr. Pikoff's podcasts. And he was asked a while ago a particular question about Ayn Rand's cats. So I thought, with permission of Dr. Pikoff, we would listen to that right now.
Some brief questions. What was the name of Ayn Rand's cat, the one that used to sleep on top of Atlas Shrugged as it was being written? Francisco, which she called a professor of epistemology because someone once left a modern non-objective painting with her overnight and he urinated on it, the first and only time he ever did that. She also had a cat called Tommy for Thomas Aquinas and one called Angel that was pre-named before it was given to her. And then he says, I talked to my cat. Did Rand ever talk to hers? And the only thing I ever heard her say is, oh, Frisco, how could you do that? I have to give a cute ending. He says, I am talking to one of the best minds, and this is all I could come up with. Am I crazy? I appreciate the compliment, but maybe it's just all big problems you've solved and you're just a happy person.
I love that. Memories of Rand and all of her cats and naming them. So, here's a woman who certainly enjoyed pets and it kind of went around the internet a couple of years ago. People are always looking for a reason to smear Ayn Rand. I mean, dehumanize her, even with examples that to me are so endearing and so lovely, such as a now famous, it's been out there for like literally decades, but her letter to Cat Fancy magazine made the rounds. It was picked up by Business Insider 5 or 6 years ago. And of course it was like, we're going to quote it now. It's actually so charming and it humanizes Miss Rand in such a lovely way. But of course, I can't even say the leftists, because this is like Business Insider. It should be you'd think it's a publication that would be kind of celebrating business and values and achievement. It didn't at all, but this is Miss Rand in Cat Fancy. I believe it's actually the second copy of Cat Fancy. Dear Miss Smith, the editor, you asked whether I own cats or simply enjoy them, or both. The answer is both. I love cats in general and own 2 in particular. You ask, we are assuming that you have an interest in cats, or was your subscription strictly objective? Miss Rand answers now, my subscription was strictly objective because I have an interest in cats, and something definitely to check out as well. A wonderful, I think, very endearing letter from Miss Rand to Cat Fancy back in 1966. I want to give one other example, and there's a lot. If you listen to Dr. Pikoff's podcast, there's tons in which he talks about his love of animals, and there's a lot about animal abuse. This is by no means an exhaustive overview of this subject, but Dr. Pikoff is a well-known lover of dogs, and those of you who might remember Dr. Pikoff's message to, I think this is the 2020 or 2021 OCON, you saw a little bit of a clip of Dr. Pikoff and his dog Kiki. So I thought we would take a very quick look at that. And remember, Kiki.
Well, yeah, but are you ready? Yeah. Oh, Kiki, we needed to take a picture of you. You had to jump right in the way. Wait a minute. All right, you know what? Go up in the bed. Up here. Good dog. Good dog. And this is the king, the queen on her throne. Yeah. Oh, yes.
I just say, like, there's something about that so completely selfish, right? I mean, I guess the Pope was saying, well, Dr. Pikoff, he's got, he's still standing. He should be off trying to, procreate, turn out a few more believers. I mean, it's and I encourage you at some point to read a bit more about Dr. Pikoff's perspectives on dogs, because they're also endearing and really fun and to read as well. So that is my message for today. Be selfish, be rationally selfish. For me, that has included a life of wonderful animals, sharing a life with beloved animals, and a life at this point not consciously having children, unless there's any, no, not having children. So don't buy into the Pope's duty about your obligation to the population, to the faith, to anything else. This is your life. This is your however many years on earth. Make the most of it, enjoy it rationally, and however you see your future unfolding. Make it a conscious, asserted choice and not just a duty because the Pope says so. All right, let's thank all of our super chatters, Allison and Mary-Aline. I've seen the Pope smile, Mary-Aline. I've seen pictures, and I think actually it's what makes him almost endearing, because he is he's got a chubby tummy, almost like the Pillsbury Doughboy. So you think, oh, how much bad can this guy do? I think to me, that's part of what makes a lot of what religion is so dangerous. Kind of comes in very innocently. But that's my 2 cents for today. Thank you all for being here. We're going to kick it over to, as they say, Clubhouse. But before we do that, I want to take this opportunity to ask you from the bottom of my heart to support what we're doing here. You, me, the Ayn Rand Institute, the Ayn Rand Center UK, we are part of a community, a growing community that is only possible because of your participation in 2 ways. One is your intellectual participation, and number 2, equally important, your financial participation. It could be £2 a month, it could be £10 a month, it could be £100 a month, but it goes a long, long way. In literally helping us keep the lights on, and by the lights, we mean our esteemed president and CEO, Rosie Ginsburg, who's created this entire network out of nothing. And it's also a psychological and emotional endorsement. When we see you kicking us £5, £10 a month, it says, there's people who are getting a value out of what we're doing. It's a trader principle. We're pumping out a lot of content for you. Big stars, Rucka Ali, Mark Pellegrino, the list goes on, Harry Binswanger, the list goes on and on. So we're working really hard to bring you great content. Do us the trade of kicking us a couple of pounds, a couple of shekels every month. And in fact, Ram asked, you are a finance guy. What do you think about the very high minimum pass score of CFA this year? I was very close to passing, but failed. I have to say, I wasn't aware of that. And I'm frustrated by that, because the CFA, I think it's a great example of how licensing laws keep very smart people out of businesses, because you can't pass an arbitrary CFA course. It means you can't work in the business. So I share your frustration. And that's, I think, a topic that I'll want to look into and we'll probably tackle in more detail on a coming show. No one ever has any empathy for financiers, because they say, oh, well, you were probably going to screw anyone else. So we'll give you not only empathy here, but we'll understand that you're off to great things. So we want to, Rand wrote a wonderful essay you might remember called America's Persecuted Minority, Big Business, America's #1 persecuted minorities. So wherever you're coming from, Ram, if you might be in India, it looks like. So if you're a businessman, you're one of us. You're a producer, and we're happy to have you as part of our community. Let's kick it to Clubhouse, kick it to the Ayn Rand Center UK website, and become a subscriber. You get access to like Don Watkins one-on-one, James Valiant one-on-one. These are really smart scholars, and you get me. See you at Clubhouse. Thanks for being here.